One of the tough things about sobriety is the mood swings. And for me, it's anger. There's some sadness or depression or loneliness that can come up sometimes too. It's a whole suite of rotating negative sort of impulses and emotions and ideas that sort of come around and take turns sort of testing you. You just have to make friends with them as much as you can. Like, I've noticed something interesting about anger and sadness in myself. I'm discovering there is an emotional cruising speed for each of these feelings. And I've noticed that when I hit that emotional cruising speed with them, it's a really positive zone I go into, but they're both really different. The sadness was one I've noticed a long time ago, a few years ago, but I'm starting to develop a positive relationship to anger. But I did find in a lot of situations with the public, with people generally, with family and friends, that when I'm just slightly sad, I am actually able to relate to people at my highest level. And I think it's something to do with the fact that life is basically pretty sad. Even evil is sad if you stop reacting to it and reflect on what it is. Because suffering is promised and happiness is not. And life is brutal. It's brutal. So sadness is, yes, a reflection of joy, which is just as real. But there is something real about sadness. And I think it's because pain is knowledge. And so I've found that when I'm just a little bit sad, but not possessed by it or lost in it, I'm actually able to relate to other people in a very deep way that often calls forth quite a lot of realness and love from other people. And I think intuitively it's because when I'm in touch with my own sadness in a non-reactive way, I'm not burying it or anything, but I'm still able to look at people and smile and stuff, that I'm able to feel other people's sadness. And somehow I feel like this kind of setting just makes it easier to relate to people. I guess I'm just feel like I'm falling into repeating myself because I want to try to understand and explain this better, but I guess it's a kind of slowing down. And so there's a not reacting too much, but listening. And I feel like the sadness makes people feel safer a little bit or empathize. I mean, not everyone. But I've really noticed, generally speaking, that when I can achieve this slightly sad, sort of integrated cruising speed emotionally, I do really well with people. I just can communicate more deeply and more effectively with people, and often without words, just a lot of much sweeter interactions, and they can be very subtle. Can be very subtle. I'm not talking about complicated conversations. There's sometimes that when I think of the situations at work. The anger is new for me that I'm learning to sit with. But I am finding an angry cruising speed too. And it's similar where I'm accepting it, I'm not repressing it, I'm not giving in to it. I'm sort of sitting with it. But again, I'm still looking at people. I'm able to smile. It's a different kind of smile. It's a soft, angry smile rather than a soft, sad smile. And again, I have very positive interactions with people, but it's very different. It's very different. It doesn't invite people into sharing in the same way, although, you know, everybody's different, and some people feel safer with that slight anger. And some people don't trust sadness, but as a general rule, what I've found, and I think it's something, it makes me more purposeful. It makes me less reflective than my sadness. It makes me focus on what I need to do. And when I'm in the world, it must sort of evaporate a lot of my indecision, I guess. Indecision. Because I've noticed that I get what I want more, or people get out of my way more, and I'm not bullying anyone. It's a gentle firmness, I guess, compared to the sadness mode, which is a sort of, I was going to say firm gentleness, but it's weird. I mean, I made this recording because I was feeling so angry, but as I talk about this, I feel sad. But the anger is more interesting to me right now because I've spent some time integrating my sadness, but my anger is something new, and I'm a lot angrier than I used to be. It's not just getting sober, because it's been happening for a while. But it's more noticeable when I'm sober. The mood swings are more dramatic. But because I've always been sort of neurotically agreeable, I'm not too worried about my anger. I got to watch out for the explosion like I had this morning. I won't get into it. But, you know, I exploded at it was a breach of my territory. It was appropriate to be angry, but it was an overreaction. And I feel a little bit poisoned by how I acted. You know, I'm ashamed of how I shouted at people. I mean, I can see it in a positive frame. Like, it's like, oh, this is good. I never used to stand up for myself. But it's really hard to compensate without overcompensating. And I do think about how they say depression is anger turned inwards. And so I feel like there's something in my anger that's just being willing to take my place in the world or something. I don't know. I'm getting close to 10 minutes, and I don't want to waffle on too long because I haven't got a real driving through point here. But it strikes me that anger and sadness, I'm learning how to do them. And if I'm going to stay sober, I really need to cement this into solid ritual understandings at some level. Cognitive strategies, and just general mindfulness of it. Because it's, I've had, I don't know what I am. I'm not really interested in mental health diagnoses. I think we've all got a little bit of everything in us. And insofar as I'm bipolar, my anxiety is not my problem. My depression is not my problem. When I don't feel any fear or anxiety, I need to watch out. I don't tend to get into danger with the other negative emotions for whatever reason. And so I'm a little bit more scared of joy than I am of anger or sadness, because I'm learning to practice anger and sadness in an effective way, with mistakes along the way. But pure joy, I need to get here, because pure joy is what we want, but happiness and mania can be easily misunderstood, easily confused with each other. It's just so strange, emotions, right? Like, how many spirits live in us, how many settings we have. And it's so hard to really know what they're about, really, because there's a trigger, But it's so much more than that, you know? It's so much more than that. So much more than the thing that triggers it.